Kind of look at entrepreneurship over time. In the beginning is what I call a catch-up entrepreneurship. So essentially, that's what China has been playing for the last 20, 30 years because they've been so backward. And there's a lot of opportunities to simply just kind of replicate or copy what works internationally, overseas, in other international markets, and then just simply make it a little bit better in China. Okay, so it's kind of like the catch-up entrepreneurship. And there's really not much of innovation or breakthrough in that first stage of entrepreneurship. And I think China has done pretty well on this catch-up phase. But going forward, what's going to hopefully set China apart is what I call it an innovative entrepreneurship. And this is where actually I think China may potentially hit some bottlenecks. Because in order to really have kind of a breakthrough on the innovative entrepreneurship, there needs to be a true disruption in the system. You need to have a political system that supports it. You also need to have what I call a different tier of financing structure to kind of support the growth of innovative entrepreneurship. And I think this is probably one area that China still needs a lot of work. Just to give you some examples. In terms of IP protection, it's still very much lacking. You also need to have perhaps a court system that is actually fair and equal to promote competition. Again, that's also quite lacking as well. And thirdly, it's on the financing side. There tends to be a lot of money available for established companies, but maybe not so much kind of in the early stage. And so in order for China to really move from what I call it catch-up in entrepreneurship to what I call it innovative, truly breakthrough entrepreneurship, there's still a lot of ways to go. And I think China is moving towards that, but nevertheless, I think it's probably still at the very beginning stage. If we look at kind of a traditional manufacturing play, actually I would say that a lot of the factories now in China are becoming very, very competitive, and there's been a lot of breakthrough on the manufacturing front. So I do believe that there will continue to be breakthrough on that. And additionally, I think the focus on e-commerce, on mobile applications, there's been a lot of interesting development because of Alibaba, because of Tencent, and what they have actually laid out. So just to give you one example, actually the world's biggest e-commerce market now is actually in China. The single-day sales was over $15 billion. Over 500 million units of goods were shipped within 96 hours. This is almost 4 times bigger than the Black Friday and the Cyber Monday here in the US. So there's been a lot of interesting development on the e-commerce front. And similarly, we're also seeing, for example, Tencent's WeChat platform having amassed close to 700 million subscriber base and really focusing on mobile payments, mobile commerce, and etc. I think also that we're seeing a lot of innovation coming out of that as well. I've been in China for close to 15 years, and I've seen a lot of changes. I think in the initial sort of 5 to 10 years, frankly speaking, it's much easier to find an opportunity and just kind of go at it because it was just so sort of early stage. But the truth of the matter is now China is becoming a lot more sophisticated. Simply taking an idea from the West and kind of replicating it in China doesn't work anymore. You also have to really focus on localizing the product, localizing the services that really kind of fit the local needs. And a lot of people are kind of learning that in the hard way. So just to give you an example, when Groupon was popular back in the early 2010, 2011s, at one point I think there were more than 5,000 Groupon-like companies, right? And everybody was doing the same thing. But in less than 1 year, probably like more than 80% of those companies vanished. And if you look at it now, maybe only the top 3 or 4, really survived. And even then, the business model has actually changed significantly from what Groupon is today. So again, that's just kind of a typical sort of pattern that we're seeing, which is that you really need to basically develop China product and services for China. You can't simply just take an idea and then just try to plug it into the local market. If they do decide to go internationally, it may be easier for these companies to focus on, first of all, Asian Pacific neighboring countries, and secondly, maybe in even less developed countries. So, for example, we know that Tencent's WeChat has actually made a pretty big inroad into Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it may be the next sort of big opportunity for them. But I think in the near term, for them to perhaps come head to head against some of the most innovative companies here in the United States or North America and Europe may still be kind of a challenge, because they're still talking about a cultural barrier, language barrier, and then also different regulatory environment. I think it may be difficult. The success of China's sort of growth the last 20 years is kind of finally taking a toll on the economy and the country in general. For example, environmental, social, the one-child policy, for example, all these things are really catching up. And I think, to solve those fundamental social issues are not going to be easy. And I think Xi Jinping probably realizes that it's going to take more than just the government to find the right solutions to all these problems. Somehow, finding a way to work with innovative private companies may be the way for the future. And this is a reason why I'm actually very encouraged when he actually came over to the United States. You kind of see the people around him. These are really kind of the top businessmen in the private sector, no longer the typical SOE companies. So I think he realizes that going forward, it's important for the Chinese government to involve the private sector in hopefully solving these big problems in the years to come.